The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
stationed atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized.
It's Monday, September 3rd, Tuesday, September 4th, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond. And this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night. I am your host, Dave Scott, broadcasting to you live from the Great White North on top of the very damp mountains of central British Columbia, right here at SOR headquarters. We are 150,000 strong nightly on the SOR radio network and Deep Talk Radio, and we say hello to each and every one of you. If you want to listen to our archives, they are free. Go to our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot, shop at our store, read up on the encounter online, and so much more. Don't forget, coming up September 28th through 30th, we have the first annual Caribou Paracon presented by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. It's right here in beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. And I want to see you all up here. Questers.ca. That's Questers.ca. Click on the fall conference. You can see our lineup, including our featured speakers, Grant Cameron, Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and so much more. Tonight's show is brought to you by the YouTube channel Ensuho. Sebastian Martin brings high-quality messages to the masses. Go to spacedoutradio.com, click on the Ensuho banner, and subscribe to the channel today. We're kicking off the new month with a topic that I probably find the most requested every month by you, and that is time travel. For some reason, I think we all have a love of this topic, because if it were possible for us to do, of course, I think we'd all go back in time or move forward without any questions asked. That's why movies such as the Back to the Future trilogy have been so successful. So tonight, we're talking time travel with our guest, Timothy Swartz. Tim is an Emmy Award-winning television producer and videographer, and is the author of a number of popular books, including The Lost Journals of Nikola Tesla, America's Strange and Supernatural History, UFO Repeaters, Time Travel, Fact, Not Fiction, and so many more. They could all be found on Amazon.com. Then in the bottom of hour number 3, we get to our news coming out of the Labor Day weekend with Everett Thiemer, our news director for The Encounter. But first, I am so excited to have Tim Swartz on the show tonight. It's the first time he's been on this show talking time travel, and I have a feeling that we're going to have to bring Tim back very, very soon, because him and I had just a fantastic conversation this evening before the show, and I think we're pretty hopped up to speak with each other. Tim, welcome to Spaced Out Radio for the first time. Very excited to have you here. Thank you so much for taking time out of your night.
Hi, Scott. It's a real pleasure. Very happy to be with everyone tonight on Spaced Out Radio.
It is such a fantastic, fantastic time to have you here. Tim, I always like to start off a little slowly here, because I want my audience to get to know you a little bit, because subjects like time travel or monsters, we just don't fall into. There's usually a story behind how we got into this genre of knowledge and this genre of trying to learn and figure out what the heck is going on this strange planet. How did you get involved?
Well, you know, like a lot of people that I'm sure have been on your show, it started with me in childhood, with the exception that I was actually kind of drug kicking and screaming into everything. What happened with me was around third grade. We used to have a thing that Scholastic Books put out. It was called like the Weekly News, I think was what it was called, something along those lines. And it was like a newspaper for kids that came out every week, and it was an aggregate of the headlines from across the globe. And our teacher would assign everyone a story that we would have to write a report on and then present it in front of the class. One time I got a story about UFOs. There was a minor flap going on across the United States at that time. And you know, at that point, like I said, I was in third grade. I really didn't know anything about UFOs. I mean, I was interested in science, but I really hadn't discovered too much, you know, in the forms of the paranormal. I mean, I was a kid from Indiana, so I was interested in race cars or, you know, basketball and things like that. So, you know, I wrote a report as well as any third grader would and presented it in front of my class, and I was pegged then. I was the kid who believed in flying saucers and Martians and little green men and things like that. You know, kids are always looking for something to, you know, hold over. Yeah. And that's what everybody had over me. I was the flying saucer guy. And so the thing that really then got me interested was that people would go and, you know, I mean, when there was a crowd around, everyone would make fun of you and things like that. But then later, you know, when it was maybe just like one-on-one, people would come to me and they'd say, you know, I don't believe in this stuff, but... And then they'd proceed to tell me a story about how, you know, their house was haunted, or when they were on vacation, they saw a flying saucer, you know, over their car, something like that. And that's what really got me into this stuff, were these stories that people would come to tell me. They weren't interested in publicity or, you know, trying to make money, or, of course, I mean, you know, a lot at first, these were just kids. They just wanted to tell their story to somebody and not be made fun of. Because as you well know, and it's a little easier nowadays, I think, especially with the internet and with the popularity of a lot of these reality programs, especially, Bigfoot hunting, ghost hunters, and things like that. But still, if you go and tell somebody that you had an unusual experience like that, chances are, people are kind of going to look at you funny out of the side of their eyes. It's like, oh yeah, sure. I have to go now. And family is the worst. I mean, your family will make fun of you worse than anybody else. So these people would tell me these stories because they knew that I wasn't going to go and make fun of them. I wasn't going to go and judge them, and say, oh yeah, you're crazy. No, they want that reassurance that their experience, not only was it real, but that other people had these experiences as well. Because with the exception of, people that, the people who listen to your show or watch some of these shows or read these books, a majority of the population really, they are not familiar with this kind of phenomena, UFOs, ghosts, paranormal, Bigfoot, whatever. So they've got no place in their brain to categorize these experiences. Our brain, it's like a computer filing system. You go out and you start your car, there's a file for that. You stop at a stoplight, there's a file for that. A UFO flies over your car and hits you with a beam of light. Where do you categorize that? Most people don't have that. And so it almost causes like a short circuit in people's lives. And they're left with that hanging over their head, that sword of Damocles, so to speak, where they don't know, am I crazy? Was this real? So when people come to me and they tell me these stories, and I can say to them, yeah, that's very interesting. You're not the only one. Other people have had these experiences. And just to be able to tell somebody their experiences without being judged, I'll see these people, they'll walk away and it's like a weight has been lifted off of their shoulders, and a lot of times that's it. I mean, they really, right. They don't want, they don't care really to repeat, their experience again, unless they have, which a lot of people do, have repeat experiences. Right. And that's what got me into this. That's what drugged me into this, is these experiences, these wonderful, mystifying experiences that people have.
You know what, Tim? It's amazing the powers of the words in this field. I believe you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. Yeah, very much so. And as well as not laughing at somebody. So many people are afraid of being laughed at, and as you well know, coworkers can be the worst as well. I know that a lot of policemen that I have interviewed over the years who have had some kind of paranormal experience, oh my gosh, their fellow cops are the worst. I mean, they will just mock their fellow officers who have had unusual experiences till it's just not funny anymore. And so there are so many people out there who will have these experiences and they just won't tell anybody. They'll keep it inside of it just festers, for the rest of their life. And so, I always encourage people who have had unusual experiences, tell somebody, even if you have to go and find, a psychologist or a psychiatrist to tell, do it, just as long as you find somebody to get that weight off of your soul, because you're not alone.
It's funny you bring up a point, back when I was a kid, even if you go back only about 10 years ago, Tim, it was taboo to talk about a lot of these subjects. People mocked you, people laughed at you. And there were very few people who would say, I believe you, without talking behind your back. Nowadays, it seems like, especially with the younger generation, people are opening up to the possibilities more. Like, I look at my 19-year-old daughter, and her and I were having a conversation today. She is completely absorbed by a lot of these topics that would be considered taboo, whether it's ghosts, whether it's anything as real as true crime and unsolved mysteries, to things like the Mandela effect. And even, and I hate to say this, but the debate about things of stupidity like flat Earth.
Mm-hmm.
This generation coming up, my friend, they are open-minded, and I think that's a positivity towards our future.
I think that a lot of this has to do with pop culture. When I was a kid, I mean, it was really just starting up when it came to, say, like Saturday morning cartoons. I'm aging myself here because, it used to be that, all we had was broadcast television, and, unless you had a local a television show that would show like Popeye cartoons or something like that after you got home from school, most of your cartoon viewing was on Saturday mornings, and they would just then they were starting to do the whole people from other planets or ghosts. I mean, albeit in a comic form, but now pop culture has so embraced this subject that is, like you said, you've got these kids, younger generations who have grown up with the idea that, I think a lot of them would be surprised if, you told them that this stuff wasn't real. That there aren't UFOs, that there aren't ghosts and things like that. I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, you're going to have the skeptics and debunkers. But one of my favorite stories, involved a couple that was walking home from a party with their teenage son. And it was at night, and all of a sudden, a UFO, I mean, it just literally just appeared over their head, and, just bright lights and all that, and then it flew away. Well, this older couple, they were just, they were gobsmacked by this. Their teenage son, he barely looked up from his telephone to acknowledge it, and he was just like, yeah, UFO. Yeah, and I think that's the way that a lot of these the younger generation is. It's they accept it. It's real to them, and I think it's because of popular culture.
I think it's going to be good, too, because with this new generation coming up, and they're getting into the university now, and they're, maybe just coming out of university with a lot of really high-quality degrees and a lot of different types of smarts than what we're used to. I think that this new generation, Tim, could be the ones that solve some of these mysteries. I mean, sure, some of us will be either very old or dead by the time they get to them, but the fact that they are open-minded enough to take these subjects seriously, I think, is a huge step forward, rather than going against the grain and fighting science and debunkers tooth and nail.
Yeah, I really look forward to seeing, what the up and coming brains will come up with, and I mean, they are going to smack into the old guard naturally, that is going to be resistant to these new ideas, but eventually we're going to see, and I mean, it happens all the time. I mean, there have been advances in understanding along these lines with every generation and throughout time. I mean, we don't recognize it because it happens, naturally, just kind of slowly. Look at how, I mean, really, back in the difference between, say, like now and the 1970s, when it comes to the ideas that something like telepathy and ESP and possibly the precognition. It's becoming more and more acceptable within the scientific community. Now, naturally, they are working on a more materialistic type of platform to explain these various kinds of mental phenomena, but still, that kind of acceptance, like I said, just as back in the 70s, you'd be thrown out of your university or wherever your position is, and probably would never get any kind of funding again if you even dared to suggest the reality of something along the lines of ESP or telepathy. And like we're going to be talking tonight about time travel. It wasn't that long ago that a scientist or a physicist wouldn't even come close to trying to address just the physics of time. Einstein took a lot of heat because he talked about the nature of time in his various theories of relativity, and now. Sorry, I'll just say physicist. They clamor to try to discover more evidence on the nature of time, whether it exists on a quantum level or even beyond that. So, just think about, 50 years from now, what amazing discoveries will happen, and hopefully a lot of us will be here, will be alive to see that take place.
You work closely with Mr. UFO, Tim Beckley, who I very much admire. And for people who don't know, I believe wasn't it Paul Stanley or Gene Simmons who gave him the name Mr. UFO?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I think it was Paul Stanley.
Yeah. So you work very closely with him. He is one of the gentlemen who is very respected in this field for UFO research. What's it like when it comes to your show that you share with Mr. UFO and the topic of disclosure? Because there is so much happening in this field right now, ever since that New York Times article came out about 10 months ago now, that you're either on board with what is happening with the current model, or you're absolutely against it because you think there's more wool being pulled over the eyes. Where are you standing with that?
Well, when it comes to the whole disclosure thing, Mr. Beckley and I, we both agree that more than likely there is never going to be a disclosure event from the U.S. government, from the military, from anybody that's really going to satisfy a lot of the people out there who are hoping that, say, the president's going to come on television at some point and say, yeah, we've been hiding the secret of extraterrestrial flying saucers for years. We've got aliens at Area 51 that they're eating strawberry ice cream, and we take them out on Sunday drives or to Las Vegas for little gambling trips. I don't think that's going to happen. Tim Beckley doesn't think that's going to happen. And I think one of the main reasons is that I don't think that the U.S. government or the military has that kind of information available to them. I think that for the most part, they are still just as much in the dark about the whole UFO phenomena as the rest of us. Yeah, sure. They may have some really exciting videos and photographs of, taken from gun cameras on planes or from other types of locations, but I think for the most part, they really don't know what's going on either. And I would dare to say that maybe some of these rumors that we have heard over the years about, say, UFOs landing at Edwards Air Force Base, and the UFO occupants coming out and actually talking to people and revealing some kind of information, striking up treaties. Some of that may actually be true, but I think that later on down the line, it was discovered that whatever information was given by these UFO occupants was spurious. It wasn't true. They were, we were left basically where we started from, in the dark. But see, they're never going to come out and admit that. They're never going to say, yeah, UFOs are real, they're flying around in our skies, and we can't do anything about it, because that would create panic. That would create a worse panic than saying, yeah, UFOs are real, they come from such and such planet, we've been talking to them for years, so what? That's easy to take. What isn't easy to take is the idea that there are strange things flying around in our skies that we can't stop them. We have no idea what they are, and we're just as much in the dark as you are about it.
See, I think a little bit more. I think the secrets are there, and this is how it kind of gets into our topic of time travel tonight, because I do believe, and maybe it's because I want to believe, that there is some sort of secret that is known outside of what we are hearing from people like Luis Elizondo or, even Robert Bigelow for that point. There is so much that is going on, and I think the U.S. government, when they look back at all the files, whether it's MJ-12, whether it's MK Ultra, or whatever, that they don't want to open that Pandora's box, because there's a lot of ugly secrets that could come out if they were forced to open it. And that even includes time travel as to whether or not it's possible, because it does open up the doors to whether or not the government knows about who is being taken, whether the government knows about the crash sites that actually did happen, which they do because of Roswell or Kecksburg and many others, whether or not there is aliens helping them out at places like Wright-Patterson or Area 51, underground bases like at Dulce. I mean, there are so many different examples, Tim, of where this could go that I don't think that they could even afford to do it, because if it ever came out, and maybe I'm hypothetically speaking here, but if it ever came out that the U.S. government or the Canadian government, doesn't matter which government it is, came out and they had a list, or they knew who was being taken and who wasn't. To me, if I found out that my government knew that I was being abducted, I'd sue them, because that's my safety.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd honk off a lot of people, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. And the way I look at it is, when you open up that Pandora's box, how far do you get? How far do you get down that rabbit hole?
Well, and that's one of the other interesting, frustrating, insert your word here, about any kind of research or investigation that the U.S. government, or any of the world's governments or military have done on the phenomena, is that it has become so compartmentalized that the right hand of the government doesn't know what the left hand of the government is doing. I mean, we do know that not only the military, but the CIA and the NSA and others have done investigations on UFOs. But we don't know to what extent. As well, there is the aspect where a lot of this information may have been handed over to private corporations in order to avoid this whole Freedom of Information Act thing. So, when, somebody writes the government and the military, wanting to know what files that they have about UFOs, the government can legitimately write back and say, hey, we don't have anything. That's because 50 years ago, they handed it over to, who knows who, what, and private corporations
Yeah.
Even though that they're being paid by the United States government, they don't have to tell you squat. You can write to them till your hand falls off, and they're just like, we're you write all you want. We're not going to tell you anything.
Well, former Nevada Senator Harry Reid stated that profusely, that the reason why they gave the majority of that $22 million to Robert Bigelow was because they didn't have to claim it under, a budget. It was a black money.
Right. Well, and, you realize, of course, that $22 million, that's a drop in the bucket. That's, I'm positive that there has been a lot more money spent and spread around into this type of investigation. Do you actually believe that, say, a hammer or a toilet actually will cost $50,000? No. That money is actually being used in some of these black budget projects, whether it's the actual investigation into the UFO phenomena or our attempts to replicate it.
And that's, I think, where it gets a little bit scary for a lot of people, because $22 million, when you think about it, to an ordinary citizen, that's a lifetime. That's just a dream. Hell, somebody said to me, $22 million, stop broadcasting Spaced Out Radio. I would honestly think about that. I'm not going to lie. I think you would do the same thing. If somebody came up to you and Tim and said, hey, I'll give you $22 million to stop broadcasting your show, I think you probably would. I don't think there is many people who wouldn't make that decision. But when it comes to UFOs and a government budget where there's trillions of dollars going missing, you do have to wonder. Yeah. Is 22 million just a safe number that they put on there? Because a lot of people aren't going to scoff at 22 million, or is it more? I tend to lean towards the side that it's a safe number to put out to the media.
Yeah, and it's easily trackable. They can say, "Oh yeah, well, we got $22 million in our budget. Here's the books. It's right there." And I think that most people who are not familiar with the vast amount of money that is being spent for various things will look at 22 million. Wow, that's a lot, and then go about their business, not realizing that in the military, 22 million wouldn't even buy you a jet plane. Wouldn't even buy a fighter jet. You may be able, might be able to buy the hatch that contains the the landing gear. That'd be about it.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Crefro Dollar was hitting up his parishioners for $65 million for a new Gulfstream.
and I bet they paid for it too.
No, I think they went for like the $28 million used version or something like that. But that's another story altogether. My friend, let's start to shift this over to time travel, because we can talk UFOs all night, but A, that's not the reason why we have you here, but B, there are some similarities, because there are a lot of people in this world who believe that one of the secrets the United States government has been keeping is time travel, and the fact that they have a time travel program. Now, love them or hate them, a lot of people look at Andrew Basiago as a leader of sorts in this field, as somebody who has become very, very public over the last 10 to 15 years, 20 years, about saying he was a child chrononaut. Now, a lot of people out there do not believe it. A lot of people think that he is very, very honest with trying to bring out something very cutting edge. Do you think the United States government, or any government in this world, has figured out time travel?
I have no doubt that at least the United States government, and probably others as well, have done some very serious research into this subject. With the U.S. government, it probably can go back to the accident which created the Philadelphia experiment. Now, I know that a lot of skeptics would be, that's just a myth, but it's not a myth. I mean, it actually happened. Whether or not the ship, the Eldridge, which is kind of, entered into the whole pop culture about the Philadelphia experiment, was the ship that was used. That's debatable because, that's something that came out a lot later in the whole Philadelphia mythology. But I do think that something unusual happened at the Philadelphia shipyard in the early 1940s when really all they were doing was trying to come up with an easier way to demagnetize metal ships so that mines wouldn't be attracted to them. And they were also working on the idea of possibly trying to create a radar invisibility using rotating electromagnetic fields. A simple process. But apparently something else happened when they were doing these experiments. This ship seemingly vanished and then reappeared at Norfolk, Virginia, and then disappeared and then came back again at the Philadelphia shipyard. When it did, the sailors that were on board were in a sorry state. A lot of them just disappeared. They were never heard from again. Others were found partially embedded in the hull of the ship. Others seemed to be okay, but then later they would burst into flames or vanish or just kind of slowly dissolve. I mean, there's all kinds of horrifying stories of what happened, to these sailors. But the military continued these experiments. Why wouldn't they? I mean, the human cost was negligible considering what they may have discovered. And this continued on, according to various people, with what was later called the Montauk project, Project Phoenix, that took place at the military base there on Long Island, which may have been early experiments in time travel, using not only what they had discovered during the Philadelphia experiments, but also then looking into the idea that the human mind could be utilized to create time travel. Some of the speculation had it that the Philadelphia experiment, one of the discoveries was that the portals that were seemingly opened that caused the ship to disappear and reappear was affected by the minds of the sailors on board this ship. So this was later then taken in and worked on and developed during the Montauk projects. Now, you mentioned Andrew Basiago. He stated that Nikola Tesla actually was the first person to discover not only teleportation, but then how to use that to create a time travel device. I have studied and researched Tesla for years now, and Tesla did have an experience one time in his laboratory in Manhattan where he was accidentally struck and enveloped by an arc of electricity from one of his coils. When he was actually working on one of these rotating electromagnetic fields that, oddly enough, was used for the Philadelphia experiments. Tesla told a reporter that he felt like at that moment that he was struck by this arc of electricity, that he had been transported outside of time and space. That he was in a place of timelessness, that he could see the past, the present, and the future all at once. And in fact, he said that he could see the entire universe all at once. And fortunately, one of his assistants struck him on the shoulder with a 2x4 and knocked him out of this arc. Else, we probably wouldn't be talking about this his experience today. But I've often wondered whether or not this experience may have motivated Tesla to take a closer look at the whole unified field theory, which he actually developed one of his own, but unfortunately we've never been able to find his complete work when it comes along, when it came to that. So now, Andrew, he says that Tesla actually went as far as to build one of these devices that was then later discovered by the United States government after he died. Okay, I can't prove or disprove that statement, so I don't know. Andrew's story, they're very interesting, and I tell you something, when you listen to him talk, and I've talked to him myself several times, boy, he believes it, and I just feel that he is really honest about his experiences. But there's just that part of me, that little part of me that's just like, boy, is this really true? Is it really possible that the United States government was able to perfect teleportation and time travel to such a point that that they were able to send people? He was talking about this was taking place, I think, in the early 70s. I can't remember exactly. When he was a kid, him and his father. That they were able to do that and then bring these people back. That's pretty wild. And so, I mean, that there's still going to be that little bit of skeptic in me, and there's nothing wrong with being a skeptic. If you go and just accept everything that everybody says, without trying to get some kind of verification, then that's not a good thing. So I'm willing to listen and research what Andrew has to say, but boy, I'd sure like to see some better evidence about that.
Let's hold off on Andrew here for a couple of minutes here, because I want to get back to the Montauk project, which ties into the Philadelphia experiment. Do you think that was a one-and-done project, or do you think that they took the results of what happened to the Eldridge and went further with it, that maybe helped lead to stealth technology or even black projects that really have been perfected, say, over the last 30 years?
Oh, definitely. I mean, if you hear any government or military official say that, we studied this stuff for, 10, 20 years and didn't find anything to it, and then just dropped it, they're lying. Nobody studies this kind of stuff without continuing on with it. It's like the MK Ultra mind control projects. I mean, the CIA loves to say that, we studied mind control all these years, and then just we just decided that it didn't work. Baloney. You don't pour all that money into secret projects like that and not have a continuation of it. So the same thing goes with the Philadelphia experiment and the Montauk project. The Montauk project allegedly ended because one of the participants decided that he had had enough, and that he used his enhanced mental powers. And when I say enhanced, they were using technology to enhance his psychokinetic abilities. That he was able to create a kind of like a monster from the id, so to speak, that appeared and trashed the place. That could very well have happened, but I certainly don't believe that after that incident that everybody just kind of like shrugged their shoulders and abandoned the place and that was it. No. That kind of research is too valuable, and it was taken someplace else. And, we have rumors of the continuation, and it may be another 10 or 20 years before the full stories start coming out on what the continuing projects were. Possibly some of this stuff that Andrew has been talking about. But yeah, nothing ever is worked on and then just abandoned. That's not the way the government and the military works.
Do we know of any projects that may have come forward as a result of those studies?
Well, it's like you said. Now, stealth technology, I think, really does have a direct lineage when it comes to the Philadelphia experiment, because like I said, originally they were working on an idea of trying to develop radar invisibility using electromagnetism. The idea was that a radar would basically hit the dome of electromagnetic energy around these ships and really make them invisible. So that has been continued on to a certain extent with stealth technology and probably some other things as well. One of the things I think that they discovered was that you could use electromagnetic frequencies to induce an actual invisibility. Now, that is something that really is a very highly top secret black budget type of project, and it's funny because President Trump recently he was given a tour of some of the more recent stealth aircraft, and I can't remember right now what they are, but he thought that rather than just being invisible to radar, that these aircraft were physically invisible, and the officials had to tell him no, they're not really invisible, and he was really disappointed. There have been experiments and probably some very successful experiments, according to some of the people that I have talked to at Area 51, and maybe even in the Dulce, New Mexico area of aircraft that are physically invisible, that they are able to fly overhead, and if they're low enough down, you'll hear them, but you can't see them. And so whether or not that involves electromagnetics or other sophisticated somebody was saying that some of these aircraft, they actually, the underside is almost like a television screen, and it's showing the sky above. And so it's, for all intents and purposes, it's optically invisible, but it's not invisible, like we would think of, like the Invisible Man type of situation, though, I don't think that that's outside the realm of possibility either.
We look at Hollywood, and we look at the fact that they have had a number of very good movies, comedies, whatever you want to call them, that have been highly successful. Okay, I think of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, the Back to the Future trilogy. Even on television, we have Doctor Who that all includes time travel. Even the Austin Powers series includes time travel. What do you think the public's fascination with time travel is? You know, because there are two movies that are, or types of movies that will usually garner a large box office, and it's always time travel or something to do with UFOs or aliens.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the appeals to the whole time travel story is all of us have at least one, and for most of us, a number of experiences in our past that we would just love to be able to go back and change that. You know, that love interest that you said that one stupid thing that ruined it all, or not stopping at that stop sign, and you ended up getting hit by a Mack truck and paralyzed the rest of your life, if you really want to go with, like a really horrible thing. But we all have things in our past that we would love to change. And I think that is one of the major appeals of the whole time travel scenario, is that idea that, you could go into the past and possibly change what happened, and then there are those who are like myself, how great would it be to be able to go to the past and see some of the stuff happen that you're really interested in, that happened in the past. Go back and see what happened to the Titanic when it hit the iceberg, or the writing of the Declaration of Independence, things like that. I mean, that really has a big appeal. And then, of course, there's the idea of being able to travel into the future, see what's going to happen, whether or not, everybody's going to, drop the bomb on each other down the road, or whether or not the aliens will make that appearance and land on the White House lawn sometime in the future. So, that's what really, I think, really makes time travel stories so appealing. But I think especially, it's that personal element, that idea that maybe you could go into the past and change some things that would make your life, your present life, better. But how many movies
wouldn't that, going and stealing a line from Back to the Future, wouldn't that not screw with the space-time continuum? It would screw with the entire timeline, because one little incident, and let's say you give yourself the winning lottery numbers, well, you're affecting literally hundreds of people, maybe thousands, by that one little decision.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, Ray Bradbury, in his short story, A Sound of Thunder, I think was one of the first ones that approached that, when the time travelers who would go back to shoot dinosaurs, but, it had to have been like a certain dinosaur that was they knew it was going to die, but somebody went and accidentally stepped on a butterfly, and then, changed the future timeline to the point where you couldn't unchange it again. And yes, that's the whole a paradox of time travel. If we are looking at time in really the classical sense, it's like the grandfather paradox. A time traveler goes back into the past, shoots his grandfather, but how is that possible? Because if his grandfather's dead, then he was never born and able to go back into the past to shoot his grandfather. So there's the paradox. Unless quantum physics now offers the idea that time is actually, instead of being, say, like a stream where the present is like, okay, where your life is like a leaf floating on this stream, and that's the present. Where the leaf was downstream was the past, where it's going to be in the future. Instead, quantum physics is kind of looking at the idea that time may be more like an infinite number of branches, say like on a tree and a bush, and that everything that we do, every decision that we make, creates a new timeline that branches off, from the original one. So if you take that concept and have the ability then to go into the past, you could go and shoot your grandfather, and that would create a new timeline that would branch off from the original timeline that you came from. More than likely, you wouldn't be able to go back to the timeline that you originated from. You'd go back to the future and there would be an alternative timeline, but basically then anything would be possible. You could go back and, shoot as many dinosaurs as you wanted to, but yeah, that really would, screw up your future. You'd end up on a timeline probably that would be unrecognizable to the one that you originated from.
We only got about 30 seconds here before we have to go to break, and I was going to ask you about alternative timelines and dimensions, which we can get into at the next hour. And I know there's a bunch of questions building up in a couple of the chat rooms. We will get to your questions as well as more about Andrew Bashaga. We'll get into John Teeter. New time travelers passing lie detector tests as well. We're going to have a lot of fun. Our guest tonight is Tim Swartz, and I highly suggest you go on Amazon, pick up any of his books. They are worth the read. They are good reads. And who knows, maybe if you can get a hold of Tim, he'll even send you an autographed copy, because I heard he works a Sharpie. Really, really good. You are listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We'll be back with more time travel talk in hour number 2 right after this.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm going to take you for a ride every Sunday night on Spaced Out Sundays. I'm going to set up your week with some strange tales from across North America, from psychic readings, Sasquatch, UFOs, to the most haunted locations. Come join me at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, and let's get weird together. I'd love for you to join me. Spaced Out Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
There's news, and there's The Encounter. This is Spaced Out Radio News Director Everett Thiemer inviting you to check out The Encounter. Our half-hour news segment every Monday through Friday night is different compared to what you're used to. Our goal is to bring you the weird, strange, and interesting stories the mainstream tends to leave out, and stories that will make you scratch your head in disbelief. The Encounter can also be found at spacedoutradio.com and on our Facebook page, SOR The Encounter. Come give us a read.
We're bringing scientific thought to the paranormal. Hi there, this is Spaced Out Radio scientist Chris Cogswell. Join me, Chris Zuger, and Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month, where we break down the who from the woo when it comes to everything paranormal. We'll investigate and try to bring sensible answers to those straight and sometimes outlandish questions people have. Hey, not everything has an answer, but we'll do our best. Listen in to Reality Paranormal only on Spaced Out Radio.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for being with us. Tomorrow night on the show, Geraldine Orozco is back with another edition of The Spiritual You. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern at spacedoutradio.com. We welcome back everyone listening in on the SOR Radio Network and Deep Talk Radio, where we have listeners right now from Romania, South Korea, Australia, the United States, the UK, Canada. Thank you so much for tuning on into Deep Talk. And don't forget, you can check out all of our archives for free. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Now, we got to see if we got a password for tonight because I haven't seen one. Bill Cardwell's still on a vacation with his lovely wife. So I'm just going to make up a password for tonight because we need a password. And we will call it, I don't know. Let's just call the password 88 miles an hour. 88 miles per hour is your password. Bill usually sets a password each and every night, but he took the long weekend off right here on the mighty SOR. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot, shop at our store, read up on the encounter online, and more. Don't forget, you can also visit right now, questers.ca. That's questers.ca. Click on the fall conference. Get your tickets for the first annual Caribou Paracon, presented by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. It happens in just 3.5 weeks, September 28th through 30th. Grant Cameron, Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison are our featured speakers. Come on up to the Caribou at Spruce Hill Resort and Spa and enjoy a good weekend of paranormal and weird with us. Tonight we are talking with Timothy Swartz. We're talking time travel tonight. Tim is an award-winning author. You can find all of his books on Amazon. There is a plethora of books out there that Tim has either penned or co-penned. Tim, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Dave. Happy to be here.
No problem. Hey, right before the break, we were talking about different timelines, and you think that there are different timelines. So, for instance, if we went back in time and changed it, we could affect the timelines of what's going on. Are you saying and suggesting with that there are concurrent timelines and or dimensions going on at the same time as right now?
Oh, yeah. One of the things that, and we discussed this, before the show began, we were talking about time slips. And when I was doing my original research on my time travel books, I've written several of them now, I ran across the phenomena of time slips, which is, if your audience doesn't know, this is an experience where all of a sudden your surroundings will change and it'll seem like that, that you're in the past, or some people have even said that they've gone to the future. Most of the time, this event happens fairly quickly, and you find yourself back, under normal circumstances. When I first was working on this stuff, I thought that, this is probably, an event, maybe somebody, went in through like a portal or a window and actually did briefly go into the past or the future. Now I'm wondering, though, whether or not some of these experiences may not be where these people are briefly visiting, say, like an alternative timeline that runs parallel to our own. And these alternative timelines may be, some of them at the same time speed, for want of a better word, than ours, so these, the alternatives, it's September 4th, 2018. Some of them may be a little bit slower, so it'd be, like 20 years in the past or 50 years in the past. And so when you have these experiences, you're not actually experiencing your own timelines, past or future, but you are experiencing the present in an alternative timeline, which, I think that there are probably an infinite number of these timelines that run parallel to our own. Those that are closer to us, maybe, at a similar, for bringing in some like new age terminology here, at a similar vibrational rate, are almost indistinguishable from our own timeline. The further out you get, there are more drastic changes. That's just a personal theory of mine,
right?
Because there are some of these time slip events that are extremely bizarre to the point where, say, people will stop and stay at a hotel that seems to, be in, say, 20, 30 years in the past. Stay there for a day, pay with the money that they have. Nobody seems to, be bothered by, modern money. Driving in a modern car, nobody seems to say anything. They come back later. The place is gone. It's never been there. Some of these stories, you'll have it, they'll go back, the place is gone. And you go, yeah, this place existed, but it burnt down 20 years ago. A lot of these incidents, there was never a hotel or a restaurant or whatever at that location. So what did they experience? So, I started to develop the theory that, some of these events, you could be actually visiting an alternative timeline. I don't want to use the word other dimension, because there are, physicists who will object to that because a dimension really is like, third dimension, fourth dimension, 2 dimensions, that sort of thing, rather than being a parallel universe or alternative reality, so to speak.
Do you have any stories that you could share with us regarding any of these time slips or dimensional travel from people whom you've either talked to or researched?
Oh, sure. Oh my gosh, I got a lot of them. I will tell you one. Now, this is my own personal experience. And I don't, it's one of these things where it's just like, was this a time slip or was it a paranormal experience, or is there any difference? When I was a teenager, a friend of mine and we were out driving. We had gone to a nearby town, and we were coming back. The car that I had wasn't the best vehicle in the world, and it had a flat tire. So we stopped to change the flat, and we had stopped in front of, and this was a very, rural location. We stopped in front of this old house, and this old gentleman came out and helped us change the tire. I have to admit that at that time, we really didn't have that much experience at changing a tire, so I was really grateful that this guy came out to help us. So later, my mom had me go back with a pie that she baked to thank this guy for helping us out. And when I went back to that location, there was no house. There was indications that there used to be a house there. The sidewalk that led up to the house was still there. Some of the rose bushes that were along that path were still there, even though that they were wildly overgrown. But there was just like what was left of a foundation. So your guess is as good as mine on what happened. Was it a time slip? Was it a ghostly haunting experience? I don't know. I just know that this guy was there. He was physically there. He helped us remove the lug nuts from the tire when we couldn't. I could see the house. I don't know. I don't know. It was a very unusual. I don't talk about that one too much. I wrote about it once, but I don't talk about it too much because it was weird. And again, was it a time slip? Was it a haunting? I don't know. Sometimes when it comes to these kinds of paranormal phenomena, they seem to defy being pigeonholed. You know what I mean? Because a lot of these time slip phenomena that people experience, it really seems to be, definitively a time slip, as opposed to somebody that say, they see a ghost walking down their hallway. Well, that's, right. That's definitively a ghost. Other times they kind of blend together, so you're just not really, quite sure what you're dealing with. And, I'm going to have to categorize my experience along those lines. Now, this other story that I'm going to tell you, this happened to a friend of mine who told me about this after he discovered that I was writing about this stuff, and this was an experience that he never talked about because it kind of freaked him out. But he was on a trip from Indiana to California, somewhere in Colorado. I'm trying to remember this now. Somewhere in Colorado. It was late, and he decided to stop for the night. There really was not any place decent for him to stop. He was starting to get tired, and he was kind of worried. So as he was driving through this small town, it was pretty late. Very small town. It was like they had pulled in the sidewalks at 5:00. He came across this. It's kind of like an old-fashioned looking hotel, not a motel, but a hotel. And so he stopped and he went in, and the desk clerk told him that they were closed for the night. They didn't have any rooms available, but he was welcome to sleep on, the couch in the small lobby. So, and he did, and had a perfectly fine evening. He got up that next day and offered to pay for spending the night there, and a different clerk told him, says no, that's ridiculous. You slept on the couch, we're not charging you anything. Got back in his car, left. On his way back, he was going to stop at this place. It wasn't there. Same small town, same location. Rather than a hotel being there, there was an abandoned gas station. And of course, now he never took the time to check to see if there had ever been a hotel at that location. And at the point that he told me this story, it had been years past. He couldn't even remember the name of the town, and so I've never been able to do the proper research. So all I have is his story. But he swears that that's what happened to him. That he stayed overnight in a hotel lobby that wasn't there.
That is eerie, man. That is
Very
completely eerie.
Yeah.
Hey, I do have to ask, with a lot of these time travel type experiences or dimensional experiences, and I've asked this question a couple times in the last 3 weeks on this show because for some reason this topic is just fascinating me lately. Do you think a lot of these people who go missing without a trace, like let's say you're out with your buddies and some guy quickly ducks behind a corner to go take a bathroom break at the garbage can. It does happen, especially when you're out with the boys or whatever, or ducks behind a tree in a park and then just disappears. Do you think a lot of the times when things like this are happening that it could be that the mysterious circumstances are the fact that maybe they wandered into a different dimension or some sort of portal?
That's an interesting theory. And, I would say that the majority of these types of mysterious disappearances probably have a more mundane explanation. They may have been accosted or, fallen into the river or something like that. There are others, though, that really, they seem to defy any kind of normal explanation. I don't know if you are familiar with the late writer D. Scott Rogo. He wrote a number of really fascinating and well-researched paranormal-based books, one of them being Phone Calls from the Dead, which if you haven't read that, that's an absolutely excellent book. Rogo wrote about a friend of his that he was at a party and he was expecting his friend, she was a female friend, to come to the party as well. And she came by taxi, and he was expecting her to show up at that time. So him and his other people who knew her were looking out the window as she walked up to the house. And when they went to open the front door, she wasn't there. She had vanished, and she never showed up again. She was gone. Eventually, her parents went to her apartment building, and her apartment, it was just like, she had left to go someplace and never came back. They never found her body. Somewhere in between that few steps from when they were watching her from the window to when they went to open the door to let her in, she just vanished. Now, where did she go? She just completely disappeared off of the face of the earth. And I mean, what other than, suddenly a UFO sweeping down and, transporting her away, could she have stepped through some kind of portal or fell through a window through time and space, to end up in another reality or God knows where? There's another interesting story that there was a gentleman, and I wish I could remember all of the details from this, who had been playing with an orchestra, and he played oh my gosh, it's like the big, not a kettle drum, but like a bass drum. Would that be it? Where you hold it basically vertically as you walk along and play it that way. When he was finished playing, he took his drum out to his car and vanished, and they never saw him again. Several years later, there was a story from Australia where the sheep herders were out in the middle of nowhere, sitting around the fire at night, and out of the darkness came this guy carrying this drum. And it wasn't until years later that some other researcher made the connection and tried to trace to see if this was the same guy, but he was never able to get all the details. But the sheep herder said that this guy just came out of the middle of nowhere carrying this drum. Didn't look like that he had been, walking through the middle of an Australian desert. He wasn't dirty or out of breath or anything like that. So, was this the guy that somehow managed to either fall through time or fall through space, or maybe a little bit of both, and end up literally on the other side of the planet? It's a great story, and if you go and do a little bit of research, you'll find a number of very similar stories like that, where people will go and step out of their house to go and walk down the driveway to get their newspaper and vanish, only to be found a couple of months later in South Africa with no idea how they got there, and no physical or monetary ways that they managed to get there. Yet there they were,
I want to get to some questions from our audience, if you don't mind. And this one, we're going to start off with Joe here, who is asking, could it be when people from this time have a time slip and go back in time, would they be seen by people from that era as ghosts?
Yes. Maybe not all of the time. there's this one story where this gentleman was visiting some Roman ruins in Italy, and the ruins at one point had been an amphitheater. And he said that while he was there, all of a sudden, the scene shifted around him, and the amphitheater was, rather than being ruins, it looked like probably how it looked in its heyday. It was full of people. There was some kind of play going on the stage. He was kind of like standing off, off to the side watching this. Nobody else seemed to notice him except for one young girl, he said. She looked maybe to be around, 15 years old. And they met, their eyes met, and she looked scared, and she was like, poking the person sitting next to her and pointing at him, but everybody just ignored him except for this one girl. And then the scene shifted, and he was back in his present time. And he often wondered, what did that girl see? Did she see a ghost, or did she just see this weirdly dressed, man who just kind of appeared out of nowhere? So yeah, I do think that some what we would call ghostly experiences, maybe similar to the one that I had, could very well be time slip incidents, because the Roman amphitheater event is a good one, but I've heard other people say very similar things that when they've had a time slip and they do encounter other people, oftentimes the people will act act shocked and scared and will run away. There was one woman who she was on a trip in Ireland and got off the train at the town she was supposed to get off on, except that when she got off the platform, rather than being like a normal platform, instead seemed to be made of rough wood, and there was no, say, like a ticket building or anything like that. So she started to walk on a path that branched off from this platform towards a large house in the distance. And there was supposed to be a town there too. There was no town. It was like a very rural. And she came across this woman who was pushing she said it was an old-fashioned baby carriage. And she tried to talk to this woman and ask her where the town was, and the woman just like stared at her and then ran away as fast as she could, pushing this baby carriage. So again, it makes you wonder, what are these people, what do these people see? Did this woman, sometime in the past, every holiday tell her relatives about this weirdly dressed ghost that she saw when she was out taking her baby for a walk? Who knows?
I want to get to Kat's question here. She is asking, what if you are your own cause for deja vu? The want to change your past breaks time and gives you a moment to think about your choice.
Oh, that's an interesting question or statement, actually. I don't know. Deja vu happens so fast. By the time you realize that you're having a deja vu event, it's gone. It's past. It's already gone by. So I don't know. That's I wish I could give a proper response to that, but I mean, every time that I have a deja vu event, it goes by so quickly that then I'm left. Okay, now wait a minute. where have I had this experience before? And, I then, I spend a couple of minutes saying, was that a dream that I had that, no, I don't know. So yeah, that's an interesting statement, but, boy, I wish I could come up with a better answer than, hell if I know.
No worries. New Joe is asking, Tim, do you believe in the block universe theory, which negates the grandfather paradox?
The block universe theory. I have no idea what the block universe theory is. Maybe after our next break, I can look that up real quick and give a response to that. I'm sure I probably heard that before, but
the block theory is block universe theory of time, or the growing block view. The past and present exist, and the future does not exist. The present is an objective property to be compared with a moving spotlight.
Ah, okay, all right. I think that, based on my own theories that I have developed over the years, because I don't think that the future is that determined. All right. I think that our futures are probably an infinite number of possibilities, some more possible than others. For the most part, our futures, for instance, my future, more than likely in the near future, I'm not going to become the King of England. All right. That's a pretty, that's pretty much determined that that's not going to happen. In the near future, there is a possibility that I'll find $10, on the road, something like that. I think that our futures are pretty much made up of shadows of things that can be, as to be determined by what we do, the decisions that we make. I could decide right now to stop this program and walk out the door and go to bed. All right. I could decide to continue on with this program and start spouting bad language or talking gibberish. So
true.
Though some people would already say that I'm doing that. I think that the idea that and this is one of the reasons that you have people who make future predictions. Sometimes they get it right. Oftentimes they get it wrong. It's because the future is not set in stone. And the whole, like going back to what Nikola Tesla was saying from his experience, he said that he could see the past, the present, and the future as happening right now. And I often wondered what he meant by that, since, my own personal belief is that the future has, really an infinite number of possibilities. So, could you, if you were like Tesla, able to go outside of physical time and space that we're locked into, could you then see that infinite number of future possibilities? And would you perceive them as being infinite possibilities, or just that's the way it is? That is what's going to happen. It may be in your timeline an unlikely future, but in another timeline, it's going to happen. I realize that for a lot of people that's kind of a difficult thing for them to wrap their heads around. But yeah, I mean, I think that is, from what we understand now, and this could change, in a matter of years. From what we understand now, I think that is the way that that time and the universe operates. When there are instances where people say that they have talked to those who have passed on, those who have passed on generally always seem to say that they exist outside of time. Right. That our perception of time is faulty because we're in the physical and we can't see how it actually is. So and I've gone wildly off track.
I think you had a good run there, my friend. We got a couple more questions here before I want to hit you up about Andrew Bashago. Okay. And this one comes from BTO, and I always take his questions with a grain of salt because I'm a Yankee fan, he's a Mets fan, so we automatically clash on the baseball diamond for sure, especially in the dog days here. But BTO is asking, do you think there are differences between time, astral, and spiritual travel?
Oh, wow. Time, astral, and spiritual travel. Okay. I think that, that's a very interesting question because I was just talking the other day with someone. I don't know if you are familiar with Dr. Leo Sprinkle, who was a UFO researcher, still is. He's fairly old now, kind of out of the business. But he was one of the first to use hypnotism to try to bring out experiences that UFO experiencers and abductees may have had to try to better remember their experiences. And one of the things that he started to discover when he was doing his research with these abductees is that oftentimes the occupants of these crafts would tell them that their spaceships or their crafts, I hate to use the word spaceship, actually were able to travel between the physical world and the spiritual worlds. I mean, the astral realms and the spiritual realms, I think it's just a matter of, different words for describing the same things. And that these ships were able then to basically time travel because they operated outside the world of physical. But they said that one of the areas that they traveled in would be what we would call the realm of the dead, where our consciousness goes to after we lose our physical. And in fact, some of these abductees said that while they were traveling on board these crafts and traveling through these areas, that they were able to see on board these ships people that they knew while they were still alive. So that's an interesting point. And one of the things about all of this is there a difference between time, the spiritual world, and the physical, possibly, maybe not. I think that, those who are able to travel outside of their body, say like, with astral projection and things like that, they do have the ability to time travel as well. There are a number of different methods when it comes to astral projection that they try to teach, that you can travel, into the past or the future. So there may not be, much of a difference. Maybe the difference is just the names that we pigeonhole upon them.
Let's get to Renee's question here. She is asking, so would missing people, ships, planes, etc. be part of these possible time portals or time slips?
Oh, yes, I think so. Again, so like I said before, I think that a lot of them are just, mundane accidents, things like that. But again, we have some of these just really bizarre disappearances, and not just people. Like she said, you have ships and airplanes that they're here 1 minute and gone the next. Where did they go? They're the area that they were flying over or traveling on were searched. Nothing has ever been found. Guaranteed especially if you're flying over the oceans, there's a lot of water out there, and it can be hard to find something. But a lot of times you have people in cars who will just, they'll be going to the next town, and then they just disappear. All rivers, lakes are searched. They're just gone. People are never seen again. The cars are never seen again. I think that there is a good possibility that there are temporary windows or portals in time and space that can open up, and accidentally you drive into them. I think that some of the cryptid creatures, Bigfoot, things like that seem to appear in places where you wouldn't think that there would be, something weird like that. A suburb next to a big city has a number of Bigfoot sightings for a couple of weeks, and then it's gone again. These could very well be creatures from an alternative reality that temporarily come into our own, run around for a while, leave footprints, maybe eat a chicken or two, and then disappear back into it.
Is that what you think the potential for Bigfoot and Dogman are?
I think so. I do think that there are probably, actual physical creatures along those lines that exist all over the world. But there are others that seem to have a more paranormal element to them. Stan Gordon has investigated a number of really great cases there in Pennsylvania where people will see, what appears to be, like a glowing ball of light suddenly appear, and a Bigfoot type creature will step out of it and then run into the woods. So what's going on with that? There was a psychic by the name of not Hans Holzer. I'll draw his name out sometime, hopefully before the end of the show here. But he was one of these guys that he could touch an object and be able to get a psychic impression of what this object was, where it came from, things like that. Peter Hurkos, that's what his name was. And one time he was participated in this experiment where they would put objects, photographs, things like that, into sealed boxes, and without him knowing what was inside. One of these things was a picture of a Bigfoot footprint. And so when he touched the box, he said that, and of course without knowing what was inside, he said that this was a creature that was not from this earth, that it was from another realm, that it would temporarily appear in our own, and then once it lost its energy, it would slowly dissipate from this reality to the next one. And I just always found that fascinating, and I think it comes very close to what a lot of other people have experienced when it comes to these unusual, really out of place, wildly out of place creature sightings around the world.
Good friend of mine here where I broadcast out of, she lives nearby, Corey. She also helps me with the ghost hunt and is helping me put on the first annual Caribou Paracon later this month. Corey is asking about portals. If you have ever heard of small little portals opening up just a few feet from people. She had this happen a couple weeks ago, and then poof, it just kind of closed up and disappeared.
Well, yeah. I can cite one of my own experiences years ago where I was investigating a house that was being haunted by a poltergeist. When I was sitting in the living room with this elderly couple talking about the incident and hoping something would happen, all of a sudden, from the ceiling, rocks started to appear and fall to the floor, like they were falling from a portal. That's really the only thing that I could think of. They would appear just a couple of inches below the ceiling, and I'm talking about like little rocks like you'd find in your driveway, like gravel, maybe about the size of a little bit smaller than a quarter. An American 25-cent, quarter, and they fell to the floor. Well, I picked these rocks up, and I remembered that a story that researcher Ivan T. Sanderson, where he had a similar event. So I took out a magic marker, and I marked these rocks. There were about 6 of them. I marked them with an X, and then I took them to the back door of the house and chucked them into the cornfield, which was just almost directly behind the house. Came back in, sat back down on the couch again, and the rocks reappeared. Same scenario, appeared about a couple of inches below the ceiling, dropped to the floor. I picked them up. They were the very same rocks with the X marked on them. So, yeah. You couldn't, I wasn't seeing, say like a glowing doorway or something like that. But they were appearing from somewhere and falling to the floor. So I don't know, a portal. That's as good as explanation, as any.
Let's get back to time travel here. We got about 9 minutes, 10 minutes before we have to go to break, and we got a lot of stories to cover in the next 40 minutes that we have you on. So I want to get back to Andrew Basiago for a minute. There are a lot of people who believe this guy is full of BS, that he is someone who has created and manifested this story about time travel, so much so that he believes it himself, and that there isn't any sort of possibility that he could be actually telling the truth, and this was actually some sort of United States government time travel program. Do you believe that Andrew Basiago is telling the truth, a half-truth, or he is just some wingnut who just is a brilliant mind who is having a lot of success in selling people on his story?
Well, I don't know how much success that he's having telling this story. I mean, you know as well as I do that for the most part, most people do not make a lot of money talking or writing about this kind of stuff. Now, I've talked to Andrew, several times, and he's a very smart man, and he's a lawyer, and as you said earlier, I doubt that if he was a whack job that he would be able to practice law like he does. And his stories always remain consistent. He has, as since the time that I first started talking with him, and that's been a number of years ago, he has never embellished his stories. He's never changed the details. They remain consistent. Now, one of the things that I find very interesting about his story, and this was something that I saw on a program where Andrew appeared, and he talked about this halfway house that him and his dad would stay. That was close to one of the locations that the government was using to induce these time portals, and they would stay in this house. It was just a nondescript house in a neighborhood, and the producers actually took Andrew to this house. And they were shooting outside this house, and the lady who lived there came outside. She was like, why are you out here taking pictures of my home? And Andrew proceeded to tell her what the house looked like on the inside, how it looked when he was there, and she admitted she had never seen Andrew before. And she said that, yes, that is what the interior of the house looks like. That it doesn't look like that now because after they moved in, they made some changes. But when they moved in, he described it perfectly. And I just always found that story very interesting. I mean, it's not a complete admission that the experiences that he was talking with were true. But I think it's very telling that something was going on that him and his father were involved with. Was it time travel experiments? I don't know. But obviously something was going on, and obviously Andrew believes it. Now he hasn't helped himself by talking about that he was going to be elected president during the last election, and I've often wondered why he would say that. Is that a little bit of disinformation to put out there?
That's where he lost me. I'm going to be honest with you. The whole I'm the next president, and I'm sitting in a room with a young Bill Clinton, a young Hillary Clinton, and a young Barack Obama, then known as Barry Soetoro. That's where he lost me.
Yeah, it's bizarre, but you'll see that time and time again when it comes to people who come forward with this kind of information. They'll say some things that can be confirmed, and then they'll say something that's just so totally outrageous, it just seems to blow the rest of their story out of the water. And so it makes me wonder whether or not that's deliberate, whether or not it puts a story out there so that, you'll believe it, but maybe not completely. It's like a disinformation campaign. You put a story out there that has some elements of truth, and then you put some just basic untruths to it, so you just never quite know what's going on, and then the wilder aspects of the story make you go, oh well, everything else that they're saying, that's not true, so everything else that they're saying isn't true as well. So I wonder if that could be a situation with Andrew. Why he's doing that, I don't know. Why, if you don't want people to believe in your story, why come out and tell it in the first place? So I don't know. Again, that's, it's one of those mysteries that that makes this whole subject just so fascinating to me.
We got about 2 minutes in it before we got to go to break here, so I'm going to hit you up with this one. Why do you believe he is telling the truth? What convinces you outside of that lady's house that Andrew Basiago is the real deal, or maybe there is something to that? Because when I look at him, and he keeps on saying, and I've researched him ad nauseum, that there were like 110 or 130 of these child chrononauts. Why hasn't anybody else come forward? Because there is strength with numbers.
Right. Well, I didn't say I necessarily, believe him 100%. I believe that he is saying something that he believes in. It has to do really kind of with that, the police call it their blue sense. I've like yourself. I mean, I was a journalist for a number of years in television, and I kind of developed that that bullcrap detector. I could tell when somebody was handing me just really a downright lie, and I don't get that completely with Andrew. I just feel that there are some aspects to his story that are true, or at least he believes enough that they are true, that he is convinced. Now, I suppose, like you said, that, I mean, he's told this story long enough that he believes that it's true. But there's just something about the way that he talks, it just rings true to me to a certain extent. I know for most people that's that's not good enough. But yeah, I mean, I just get that sense that he does believe that he had these experiences.
And on that note, I'm going to get you to hold on as we are going to go to our final break of the night here on Spaced Out Radio. Tim Swartz is our guest tonight, an Emmy award-winning producer / videographer, and you can find any of his weird, strange books on Amazon. I highly suggest you check it out. It'll be Timothy Swartz on there. We got half an hour left with him. We're going to talk time travel right after this. John Teeter, lie detector tests. We're going to see where this goes in the next half hour on Spaced Out Radio. We'll be right back.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Find yourself constantly looking up in the sky, looking for answers? Have you had extraterrestrial contact? Are you an abductee? Looking for answers to your experiences? Hi there, I'm R. Keith Andrews, Spaced Out Radio's resident ET expert. Join me live the first Friday of every month where I take questions from the Spaced Out Radio chat room and help you understand those from the far-off world. It's 2 hours of knowledge every experiencer should listen to. Hope to see you there.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your 4-Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
You know, it's hard being the bad man of ufology, but that's just the way that I like it. This is Chris George Zuger, and I'll be hanging out with Dave Scott and SOR scientist Chris Cogswell for Reality Paranormal, the second Wednesday of every month. And our job is to break it down and come to conclusions as to what is really going on in the supernatural world. I'd love for you to join us and bring your questions for us to investigate right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
When it comes to the news, we look for the stories that the mainstream won't cover. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter. This is News Director Everett Thiemer. The Encounter is about the weird and strange stories that occur daily, and we scour the world looking to bring them to you. You can hear me with Dave Scott every Monday through Friday in our Encounter news segment. Read us online at spacedoutradio.com or check us out and give our Facebook page a like at SOR The Encounter. So come give The Encounter a read.
From the mile-high state of Colorado, sharing our signal around the world, I invite you to Spaced Out Sundays. Hi, I'm Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm closing out the week by taking you on a paranormal journey to the world of the weird. Ghosts, aliens, psychic phenomena, I will hit it all in your questions too. So let us highlight the paranormal for you. So come join me for Spaced Out Sundays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for being with us. Tomorrow night on the program, Geraldine Orozco is back the first Tuesday of the month with another edition of The Spiritual You. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern at spacedoutradio.com. Hello to everyone listening in on the SOR Radio Network and Deep Talk Radio all around the world, Australia, New Zealand, Romania, the UK, all over North America. Thank you so much for tuning in. Even South Korea tonight. Appreciate you tuning on in. Don't forget, you can check out our archives for free at our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. No Bill Cardwell tonight, but we've set the password for the SOR Space Travelers Club. It's 88 miles per hour. 88 miles per hour is your password. Be sure to use it wisely, Space Travelers, as we set the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot, shop at our store, read up on the encounter online, and so much more. Don't forget, you can also check out questers.ca. That's questers.ca. Click on the fall conference. Get your tickets right now for the first annual Caribou Paracon, presented by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers, is this month, September 28th through 30th. Great getaway holiday up in beautiful 108-mile Ranch, British Columbia at the Spruce Hill Resort and Spa. I think you would absolutely love coming up to this event. Tickets are about $115 American. That's $150 Canadian. Yeah, exchange kicking our butts up here for Canada right now. So make sure you come up and have a good time. For the final time tonight, we introduce our guest, Timothy Swartz. You can find all of his books on Amazon. He is a firm, studious researcher on the subject of time travel. Tim, welcome back.
All right. Thank you. I'm having a great time tonight. I hope your audience is enjoying this as well.
Oh, I think they are. I think they are. This show is flying on by, just flying, which I absolutely love it when it does. I mean, I hate it because sometimes it just goes way too quickly, but I absolutely love it because it means we're all having a good time. So thank you for that.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm just really enjoying it. And you know, I mean, that's one of the mysteries of time. I mean, scientists have actually written papers on this, you know, like, why does time seem to go fast when you're having a good time and drag when you're not?
Well, it's time travel.
Yeah, it is.
Well, since we're on the subject, my friend, you know, for the last 15, almost 20 years now, people have been captivated by the story of John Titor. Now, this was a gentleman who just came out of nowhere saying he was a time traveler and looking for a computer back in the 70s, and then found the parts for the IBM, then stopped in around 2001, connected with Art Bell's show on Coast to Coast. God rest Art Bell's soul. But nonetheless, this is a story that just doesn't seem to go away. What do you think captivated people about John Titor?
Boy, you know, that's taken me back. I was actually part of that original forum that Art Bell had when John appeared and started writing his stories. So I was in on that from the very beginning, and there was just something believable about Titor's story. His search for the IBM computer, and gosh, what was it? It had the ability, I guess, to gosh, what was it? To use, I guess, a program that wasn't available any longer from his apocalyptic era. So, you know, he had to go back and take it with him. I mean, he always had an explanation. I mean, people would ask him all kinds of questions, and I mean, and if he didn't know, he would just come and say that he didn't know. And but a lot of the things that he talked about, I mean, really seemed possible. At that time, he talked about a coming civil war in the United States. And because of that civil war, then there was a nuclear exchange from other countries who had perceived that now was a good time to take the United States out, and they did. But one of the things that I think fascinated a lot of people was that he admitted that probably because of his coming to the past, that he may have changed the future. That even though he may have been able to go back and to deliver his computer that he had found from the 70s, that he probably would not be going back to a future that he originated from. That just the fact that he went into the past was enough to alter his timeline. Now, of course, that's also a convenient explanation if the things that he predicted were going to happen didn't happen. And we now know that they didn't, that there wasn't a civil war, and there wasn't a nuclear exchange. And like you said, his story has persisted, even though more than likely it was a hoax. Yet, there is actually another guy that has come out recently saying that his name is John Teeter, that it's almost what's the word that I'm thinking of? That all the time travelers take on that name, John. But actually, the more recent John Teeter, he said it was just a coincidence that the original Tom, that his name was John Teeter, and that the one that started writing on the Art Bell forums was also John Teeter.
Yeah, so that's the John Teeter 2. That
yes,
it seems like the late Bob Mitchell and Jason Quitt seem to get in a lot of hot water with.
Oh, very much so. Well, we have both of them, John Teeter too, and Quitt on Exploring the Bizarre, Timothy Beckley and myself. Now, we had them on shortly after the last election, between Clinton and Trump. I had heard John Teeter Jr. or 2 or whatever name he has on Coast to Coast, and he was talking about who is going to win the upcoming election and a nuclear exchange that would then happen between Iran and the United States, where Iran would actually sneak an atomic weapon into the United States and detonate it near Washington. Now, when he was on Coast to Coast, he didn't come out and say it, but he alluded that it was going to be Hillary Clinton that was going to win the election, and that because of her screw ups, that he was going to make Iran mad, and that's why they bombed us. When we had him on, he said that no, we meant Trump the entire time, and that it's it's Trump that's going to cause the atomic war. But myself and other time agents went back and stopped Iran from doing it, so it's never going to happen. And Beckley and myself, we were like, oh well, that's convenient. So, with a lot of these cases, you really have to approach them with your tongue firmly embedded in your cheek. A lot of these stories, they really sound good, but you have to decide for yourself whether or not you're going to believe them or not, and whether or not they offer the evidence and the verification to convince you whether they're true or not. And I think that ultimately the original John Teeter, while his stories really were good, and he had some, he actually produced a picture that supposedly, showed his time travel device. But ultimately I think that it probably was a hoax. I still am not entirely convinced that you can travel through time, kind of like in the movies, where you get into the device, or DeLorean, and you set the dials for, June 23rd, 1958, and are able to time travel that way. It's almost it's like an analog way of traveling through time. And I think that time is just it's so different than I think what we can really conceive right now, that type of time travel probably isn't going to work.
How does a guy like Dana Lee Stern Sr., also known as John Teeter II, get away with this and trying to capitalize financially off of this?
Well, I think that there are people out there that, they really want these stories to be true, and they'll believe them no matter what. It's the same situation that you see when it comes to, like politics and religion and things like that. People want to believe in these things so much. They want to believe that their political leader isn't going to lie to them, or that the leader of their church, isn't a crook asking, for so much money so he can buy a private jet. That they just leave their sensibilities outside the back door and just accept whatever is told to them, because they think that asking questions, having doubts, asking for, a verification, they think that that's wrong. That, if you ask for something like that, then you are an unbeliever, and you should be cast out. But when it comes to any of these types of claims, if somebody is serious about what they are saying and expect people to believe in what they are saying, then they have to pony up that verification. They have to bring whatever they have to confirm what they're saying is true. Verify. When I was working the news game, you just never would take one person's a story for fact and put it on the air. You had to get it from several other people as well. You know as well as I do that there are a number of news outlets that that don't follow that rule. Some people, somebody comes up and says, "Hey, such and such, was seen in a car driving with a lady of the night," and boy, they'll put that on the air as fast as they can. That's sloppy. That's really sloppy. So if you want, if you want to believe in some of these people and the stories that they're telling, it's not a sin to ask for verification, to prove it. Prove it to me that what you are telling is true.
So when you look at the timelines here, we got Andrew Bashago coming out, we got the John Teeter thing, and then earlier this year there was a gentleman who came out, and this story hit the alternative media pretty hard, of a gentleman named Jamie Oliver, who claimed to be from the year 6491. And this man says his time machine broke down and he's stuck in 2018. And he took a lie detector test and allegedly passed. However, we don't know who was running the lie detector. We don't know if it was a company of any sorts. We don't know how true or false this actually is, considering the person doing the lie detector test is sitting in a blue hoodie and their face is blurred out. I mean, is this the ridiculous of the ridiculous of people trying to pull more wool over their eyes, or is there any truth to this?
Oh, I think it's ridiculous. And the lie detector test, he'd make a statement and they would just flash up, true onto the screen. And what kind of lie detector test is that? And anyway, it's been proven a long time ago that lie detectors can be fooled very easily. If you know how to do it, you can fool a lie detector. And, the person who's running a lie detector, they rely a lot on their own blue sense, so to speak, as well. It's almost like those black boxes, that are being sold, like Hieronymus machines and stuff. I think a lot of times these lie detector operators are actually relying more, possibly on their sixth sense to determine whether or not the person that is under the wire, so to speak, is telling the truth or not. But I think all of these stories that you have seen recently coming out on YouTube are fake. They're popular because they're fun. It's fun to watch them and to listen to their stories. But so far, none of them have really given any information that can be confirmed soon. A couple of them had said, like, such and such is going to be a president, in the near future. But, I want somebody to say, well, 2 weeks from now, a plane is going to crash in the Grand Canyon, or something along those lines.
Yeah, and the predictions are always so vague. I mean, global warming is always a ticket issue on there. There's always some sort of geological environmental accident, whether it's nuclear fallout or whether it's a tidal wave, earthquakes, volcanoes. Like, there's never anything, serious about that. Like, you're going to see some Hollywood star choke on a Big Mac.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good one.
After a night of partying at the Rainbow Club in Hollywood. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's the stuff I want to see. All right? Tell me who's going to win the Stanley Cup or the Super Bowl in, 2032 so I can place a bet. Get the odds now.
Yeah, well, and then there's the ones who will produce a picture, this is Los Angeles after global warming has flooded the planet. You see, the city's underwater. Okay. If you want me to believe this, don't you have something better than, say, just a photograph, a Polaroid photograph or whatever? If you're from the future, don't you have, like a 3D device or something that you can create a hologram, or did you have to leave that all behind when you got trapped here in the present?
I mean, if you're going through a time machine, are you not packing a lot of these essentials? How come they never have a toothbrush? How come, they are dressed in today's clothing?
Mm-hmm.
Like the guy on this video is dressed in a hoodie. Like, come on. Now, I realize they probably got him some clothes that's easy to be, fixed or whatever it may be. But, I mean, tell me some stuff that I need to know. What are we driving? Are we still on oil and gas in 6481? Or even on John Teeter's 2039 timeline? Are we on gas and water?
Well, the thing about it is also that if you're coming from, what was that, 6341? I mean, that is so far in the future that humanity would probably be basically unrecognizable to present time. I mean, go in the opposite direction. What were we like that many years in the past? I mean,
and languages are always changing. How could we sit here and say that this gentleman, who apparently speaks with a British accent, how can we say that he's using the exact same words that we are doing? I mean, verbiage has changed over the years and over the centuries.
Mm-hmm. Well, and of course they always offer the excuse that, we can't tell you anything that's going to happen in the future because that'll affect the timeline. But what they're doing, even just coming on YouTube and talking about this, would be enough to affect the timeline. So, I mean, that's specious reasoning as far as I'm concerned.
So let's go to the more logical question. Do you believe that time travelers, either from the past or the future, have visited?
I do. One of my favorite theories is that at least some of the UFO phenomena could possibly be time travelers from the future. If you have the ability to travel through time, then from history that this was a period where people claim to have been seen, a strange craft in the skies that claimed to be from other planets. So what better way then to disguise yourself to come back and study the past than if somebody ran across you? You don't say, oh, well, we're time travelers. You say, oh, no, we're from Zeta Reticuli. Yeah, that's it. That's the ticket. And then you can go about your, business, studying the past or what have you. And somebody has another good story about running into, little green men from Mars.
It just gets a little ridiculous, does it not? Because, time travel is one of those things where I think we all want to believe. We all want to do it. We all want to go back in time and, say goodbye to mom or dad or grandpa or grandma or even a sibling who has moved over, or helped our siblings, take, for instance, in my family, we just lost my nephew at the young age of 29 years old a couple of months ago. And, I think we all want to go back and try and make those changes for the positive because we miss them. It's personal. Mm-hmm. But I think with a lot of these people who are going on YouTube, I think they are just playing on people's emotions. And it's the same thing with the CGI UFOs and the CGI aliens that people are creating. They're playing on people's emotions. And to me, that is very dangerous for a field that is so wanting to believe that they'll believe almost anything.
Well, it's all in getting those hits. My channel has 1 million hits because I've got a guy on here who claims to be a time traveler.
Is that what it comes down to, though? Is it's just life has become about clickbait in the research of this field?
Yeah, I think for a lot of sites, YouTube is notorious for that. And, I always tell people that, if they saw something on YouTube, then it's probably not true. Don't use YouTube as a source. That's what I always say. I mean, if you think it's something that you could believe in, then try to get additional information from other sources. Don't depend entirely on what you're seeing from YouTube. YouTube is not a news source.
My friend, we only got about 90 seconds with you tonight. This has flown way too fast. We literally time traveled through this entire show. So, Tim, I want to just quickly ask you if you could break down where our audience can find you with your radio show, with your books. They definitely need to figure that one out.
Right. Well, you can listen to Exploring the Bizarre with myself and Timothy Green Beckley on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. That's KCORradio.com. We're heard live Thursday nights at 10 o'clock Eastern. Our website is conspiracyjournal.com, conspiracyjournal.com. And any of my books, you can find them on Amazon. Just type in Tim R. Swartz, and they'll all show up in abundance.
My friend, what a pleasure. What a pleasure to have you on the show. This just flew by. That's a quick 2.5 hours.
Well, thanks, Dave. I had a great time, and I hope your audience enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, we're going to have to do this again.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yeah, we're not done this conversation. We'll look to get you in early in the new year. How about that?
That'd be great. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, Tim. Thank you so much. Tim Swartz, everybody. And coming up next, we have the start of the new week with the encounter with Everthemer.
This is the winter of our lives. We come to play the final scene. The curtains closing in the darkness. We expose what lies beneath.
We are entering the encounter tonight with Everett Themer, who is coming off a Labor Day long weekend of chopping wood and feeling manly, as we take a look around the world at the news of the day, the strange, the weird, the WTF. The news is always changing, and that's why we bring you the encounter. You can find all of our news right now. We're about to transfer it onto our website, spacedoutradio.com, but you can also find it at facebook.com/SOR The Encounter. Give it a like if you don't mind. Mr. Themer, how's Team Stump doing?
Oh, today is Labor Day here in the U.S., and I'm a little sad.
In Canada.
Okay. I thought it was later in the year for you guys.
No, that's the Aussies.
Oh, okay. Well, now's the end of summer. And that makes me a little sad.
Dude, it's going to get down to 2 degrees Celsius tonight. 2 degrees Celsius. We're in summertime. I don't need socks and pants right now.
Well, apparently we're in fall time now, and it's the last time I looked, it was 78 degrees and dripping with humidity.
Oh, want to trade?
Yeah, well, you do get to play with that wood burner.
Well, I realize that, but getting this is screwing me up because I know how much wood I need from October to April. I'm not prepped for September yet, man. Not prepped. This is honestly, it's causing me an anxiety attack here.
Come and take some of mine. I am so sick of wood. I never want to see wood again. I have it all over the place, and I'm literally tired of it. So you can have some of mine.
Oh, would you bring a delivery truck? I'd appreciate that.
I'll meet you halfway.
All right. Sounds good. My friend, how was your long weekend?
Like I said, summer's over, and now I'm sad. So
I know.
That was about it. I cut wood, played with the chainsaw, stacked wood.
Yeah. You never go wrong with playing with a chainsaw, man. Never go wrong. I'm getting a little bit ribbed on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio tonight because I accidentally let it slip that being Canadian, I did not wear plaid while out going to get wood.
That's horrible. Even I put on plaid while I was using the saw.
I know. I'm trying to be rebellious, break a stereotype. All right. But
So
nonetheless,
you're telling me you did not put on plaid
I did not put on plaid.
in like 80-degree temperatures. I put on a plaid flannel shirt to move wood.
See, that's just a stereotype, man. You're allowed to just wear a T-shirt.
That
Or a
can
hoodie.
be a little dangerous.
Well, technically, I was wearing a plaid hoodie. Does that count? They were the
That's
big
it.
squares, though. The big squares, not the little ones.
Did lumberjacks way out in the woods wear hoodies?
No.
Then I don't think it counts.
Damn it. All right, fine. When I go out this week, I will wear plaid just to appease everybody out there in the Twitterverse at #SpacedOutRadio and our chat room so they can stop bugging me about gnomes. Let's get to the news of the night, my friend.
A man in Italy went to the emergency room complaining of abdominal pain.
Right.
And x-rays showed that he had a long and large-sized foreign object in his colon. And it turned out to be a 23-inch long sex toy. It gets better and much worse.
Oh, no.
Now, the doctors, using what they call standard techniques, couldn't remove it. So they did some thinking and some consulting, and they came up with a new procedure that allowed them to use some medical wire and a catheter to get up far enough and basically lasso this object and remove it. And in the medical report write-up for the after the case, the doctor said that in their opinion, what they did was easily reproducible and should be standard procedure for cases of foreign objects stuck up people's bums that are difficult to remove.
Now, a lot of these stories that you hear, you think they're just made up stories from the ER room. I got a cousin of mine who is a doctor. And during a couple of his residencies at local hospitals, especially when he worked at a couple in Vancouver, these stories are true, man. These stories are true. It's hideous. It's hideous to think what people are doing to their own orifices. Like, come on,
Well, just the idea that they're recommending this as a new standard procedure for objects. I saw several reports on this, and what was frightening is the number of times the phrase sex toy was used in all of these reports. So apparently they wanted to get it across that that's what it was. And this is apparently not as uncommon as we would like to think.
My goodness.
I'm gonna admit I looked at a yardstick, and 23 inches is quite frightening for anything to be in my colon.
Yeah, I mean, how? I guess when there's a will, there's a way. But I mean, why hasn't the sex toy industry invested in like a wine corkscrew? That you just pop it in there and pull it out.
The weird thing about this, and I understand embarrassment. I'm fully familiar with embarrassment, but he went to the ER complaining of abdominal
did he not know?
Pain.
Did he not know?
Well, that's the thing. That's kind of like burying the lead. Why go in and complain of pain? Maybe not mention that you have inserted something into your bum and it's now stuck.
Oh,
why go through all of the testing and things only to have to admit it anyway?
Oh, that's just painful. I'm telling you, I'm cringing right now. So we're gonna have to We're going to have to move on from this one because I am puckered right up right now. That's all I'm going to say. I'm puckered right up.
Well, then we're going to shift gears and shift order a little bit here and talk about the man in Essex, England, who received an undisclosed but confirmed six-figure settlement after he contracted necrotizing fasciitis.
What is that?
And it is a flesh-eating disease. He contracted it while he was having prostate surgery, and part of his intestine was punctured. And, well, he lost all but an inch and a half of his penis.
Oh, no. No.
It basically killed the flesh of his penis, killed the flesh across his stomach, and he had to have part of his stomach muscle and stomach area removed. Apparently, part of his intestines are exposed at this point.
Ow.
It's...
How do you get flesh-eating disease in a hospital? I mean,
well,
the way they clean everything.
See, one of the worst places to get sick is the hospital. You would think that it's clean, but first of all, there's a lot of sick people there.
True.
And second, we assume that the hospitals are always clean. We like to think that they're always clean, but there are various bacteria and viruses, staph, MRSA. These are quite prevalent,
right?
To get in the hospital.
Oh, my
so
goodness.
To get something like this, it's uncommon but not unheard of. But I think one of the things that needs to be taken away from this is the idea of your aftercare, being aware of what's going on with your own body and following up.
How much did he win? How much did he win?
What they disclosed is that it is a six-figure settlement. They wouldn't disclose an exact amount.
6 figures? That's it? You got to be pushing 7 figures, man. If you honestly, I'm serious. It should be $1 million per inch.
That's terrible.
It should be.
But probably a little accurate.
This is terrible. I mean, the guy has... how do you even word this? The guy is suffering.
Well, he is incontinent. He can no longer perform sexually. He has he's a caregiver, and he does have now part of his intestines, I guess, basically exposed.
Yeah.
So that's a danger. But yeah, it's frightening. But I think part of it, like I said, is the idea of you have to be aware of what's going on with your own body. You can't just walk out of the hospital or walk out of the doctor and assume you're going to be great and not pay attention to what's going on. But the other part too is the hospital did obviously admit some liability here.
As they should. This guy needs to get paid. Or at least have the ability to have some plastic surgery at the cost of the hospital, man.
Makes you seriously rethink the idea of having that prostate examined, doesn't it?
Oh, it does. We got to move on, man. I'm just grossed out by this one.
Well, there's this story circulating out of Kings Mountain, North Carolina, and it's being taken a bit seriously, and it's getting a little bit of traction. This gentleman, Havian Hill, claims that he observed a hovering square object in the sky with lights around the edges of it. And he pulled over and attempted to take a video of it. He did get a couple pictures. He attempted to take a video of it. And he said that as soon as he did that, it began to rain and the object disappeared. So it's up for debate a little bit now whether or not he saw some form of strange cloud or whether he saw something like the TR3B, which is, I'm sure quite common to be seen down there. That's one of the bigger areas for that kind of report. But there was another witness to it that claims that he saw something strange in the sky too at the same time. Right. So it leads one to wonder, was it something? Was it a government project? Was it something unidentified? But when you have two witnesses both claiming to see something in an area like that, and then to have it taken seriously by the local media, and I assume that in the next day or two it will probably expand a bit if it hasn't already in the last few hours. I think that's a big step.
These square UFOs that literally look like blocks. Michael Schratt had talked about them on this show a couple of times when Michael was on, and they are rare, but they are said to be out there. And these squares, I mean, you think that wouldn't be feasible to fly. The triangles or the boomerang shape, you could see that it easily flies. But when you have a square, a big square or a rectangle up in the sky, you got to think, how the hell does that stay in the air?
And if it's hovering above you,
yeah,
you would think that there would be some form of interaction, reaction. There would be some sort of disturbance that you would feel in the air. But yet people continue to make these reports and see these things, and there never seems to be. The ones that used to fascinate me were I don't know if you remember these or had a lot of these up there, essentially like a flying cube.
Yes. Yeah. I've never seen one of those. I would like to see one of those because I would like to know how it flies. I've seen two black triangles. But I mean, this cube thing, this is a weird practice. And if you go check out Michael Schratt's work, go on YouTube. Michael Schratt. Schratt is spelled Schratt. He is brilliant when it comes to the secret space program and UFOs and all of this. And he actually talks about these flying cubes. I mean, it just doesn't seem logical that this can fly and that it can hover and it's not causing anything to the environment that would make it crash or that would make it, disappear. I mean, it seems to act like these black triangles do, where they can go in and out, and it's phenomenal.
It is weird. It makes you wonder, and I don't know what the alleged or supposed propulsion system on the TR-3B is, but when you look at these reports, I have a hard time grasping the concept that it can just float there in the sky with no movement and not have some form of disturbance below it. I mean, you would expect it to be some form of I don't want to say necessarily rocket, but there has to be something pushing it against gravity. And I know that there are all kinds of theories and ideas out there of these anti-gravity generators and things like that. But if they're using something like that and people are seeing these things, I would think that the government would want to keep that much more hidden than it apparently is.
No kidding, man. Let's get to our final story of the day. We got time for one more.
Egypt has made a lot of news lately, from the sarcophagus juice to the mummy cheese. Well, now they've unearthed a new village in the Nile Delta that dates back possibly 7,000 years, which puts it before the time of the pharaohs. So this could be a history-changing and history-altering discovery. And it's an ongoing archaeological dig, but it kind of coincides with the building of a large museum dedicated to the history of archaeology and the pharaohs and Egypt's history, all designed to capitalize a little bit on the tourism.
How big is this city that they have found?
I'm not sure. They haven't, in the reports that I saw, they haven't given an exact size, But what they did find was some living quarters. They found silos with organic material in them, which could give us quite a bit of insight into what the Egyptians were eating before the pharaohs, before the time of the pharaohs, which in a way is a huge thing in and of itself.
What kind of artifacts are they finding? This is interesting, man.
Oh, what did they find? They found pottery, animal bones. There were some plant remains, which I think that will probably, between that and the animal bones, will seriously give us some good insight into the diet of the Egyptian people before the pharaohs. They found some tools. They found a lot of different things that you would expect to find in a settlement like that.
How many DVD copies of the Golden Girls did they find?
24.
Nice. Very nice.
They also found a Blu-ray player and an old Dell computer.
Oh, nice. Did they find any IBM parts that John Teeter may be looking for?
There were no IBM parts.
Oh, damn it. Commodore 64?
Hey, I have one of those.
All right. I'd still like to hook up with the old Atari 2600 that I had, man, as a kid.
God, you're making me feel old. I have one of those, too, with the little cartridges.
Yeah. Remember when ColecoVision came out and everybody our age was like, oh, my God, and you rushed over to your friend's house who got the ColecoVision? Can't believe my parents bought me an Atari or an Intellivision.
Well, there was like that step ladder. If you had Atari, then came the Intellivision, which was better than the Atari. And then the ColecoVision came. Yeah. And that was just the best of them all. And I never had a ColecoVision.
Neither did I.
But I still have a working Atari 2600 with the original Donkey Kong and Pitfall.
Oh, yeah. I loved those games. Those games.
I'm still not good at them.
Donkey Kong only had 2 levels, man.
Hey, I'm pretty good at Chopper Command. Do you remember that one?
Do you have the dials that have for the game Kaboom? Remember the round dials?
Oh, yeah, the paddle things?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mom was a big Kaboom fan back then. Big Kaboom fan. Let's get to the thought of the day, shall we?
Excellent.
Renee loves this song, by the way. Don't you, Renee, in the chat room? If you're on listening out there and you haven't been to one of our chat rooms yet, you got to come join in one of the chat rooms. Today's Thought of the Dave, we do it every day. We post a question on my Facebook and Twitter accounts, and then we read your responses on the air because we absolutely love having audience participation on this show. So today's Thought of the Dave is this. What is your opinion on time travel, and do we have the technology to do so? Let's get to some of your responses, shall we? Raven says, I believe it is possible, and that it doesn't necessarily require technology. I think she's into astral travel. That would seem very fitting for there.
That makes sense.
Graham, it can be viewing in the residence images of people by the Glockengrid who use it, but for only around 50 feet around it, and only of what time was recorded. Past life images are also said to be visible in case as far as back as Roman times and even before that. Very, very interesting. I did not know that. Daniel, time travel to the future is a fact when you travel at a significant portion of the speed of light or being close to a massively massive object. Your clock runs slower than the clocks on Earth. Time travel to the past is an unknown with a plethora, nice use of the word plethora there, Daniel, a plethora of paradoxical questions. That seems way too scientific for me. Michael says, to the future, opinion, 100% possible. Technology, yes, on an insignificant scale. To the past, opinion, in normal physics, yes, it's theoretically possible, but may not be possible with today's technology. In quantum physics, yes, possible. Bart L. Producer states, Yes, Dr. Emmett Brown came up with the idea of the flux capacitor, makes time travel possible, on November 5th, 1955, after slipping and bumping his head on the toilet while hanging a clock. 30 years later, it was developed. God bless the DeLorean. Oh, God, I love that movie. Just loved that movie.
I love DeLoreans.
Yeah, me too. Me too. All right, let's find out what else is happening. Helena says, of course we do. It's been hidden from us. Keith? Yes, I can get to any place that is 20 minutes away from me in only 20 minutes. Wow. Scott says, I have already answered this. Oh, God, the creativity sometimes just gets to me. Randall, I had the technology, but I had to return it to the library, so we don't have the technology anymore. The library does. LOL, just kidding. Perhaps you can get it on Amazon. Angie, Tesla designed a machine, and the feds took it. William, no. Thanks for expansion on that one, bud. Some dude named Everett says, there is no married man who is capable of on-time travel. It's just not possible. Who would have came up with that, Everett?
I misread the question. I thought you were talking about on-time travel, not opinions on time travel.
Oh, okay. Little Timmy says, no, not in this dimension. Parallel universe, maybe. Linda, personally, I believe so, but at a great cost, and I am not talking finances. David, do we have the technology to do so? That's a loaded question, or a trick question. The answer is yes and no. The answer depends on how you define we, how you define time travel, and how you define technology. Robert Salas, we got to get him on the show. Robert Salas. Not yet. From him, I will accept that answer. I mean, this is a dude who saw his nuclear missile silo get shut down by UFOs. I'll believe him.
Yeah, I think we can take his word.
Yeah. Marty, the retired skeptic from Twitter, says we will eventually find a way to time travel, just like we were able to find ways to fly in airplanes and have wireless communication worldwide, which just 150 years ago were as impossible as time travel is today. Marty, you're making way too much sense for these questions, my friend. Way too much sense. Renee, do we have the technology for time travel? Perhaps, but can we time travel? That I'm not sure of. Sure. Should we time travel? Now, that is a loaded question. What possible good could come from that? If the time travel were to ever exist, it would not create peace. It would cause countries to kill for the materials to make it or to steal it. A time-traveling machine will be the equivalent of a nuclear bomb. It can destroy civilizations and make one country hate the other for having one. People would also try to change history and in the process make themselves not exist at all. Wow. That is deep. You know what? I got to say, I've never looked at it at that angle before.
There are some good points in that.
Huge good points. Let's race through a couple more because we do got to get going here. Teresa, Andrew Bashago, Jump Room 666, Sepulveda Boulevard, El Segundo, California. Don't know what that means. Patricia, not possible with the rational left brain. We time travel in dream time when our brain's waves shift. We can learn to do this. Mary, yes, CERN in Switzerland. Penman, when I lay down and go to sleep, then I wake up several hours later. It's kind of like time travel. Aussie Rob, how's tomorrow looking? Yes, the technology exists. Yes, there have been experimentations. Jade gets the final word. When I go back east this week, I will be traveling 4 hours into the future. Aussie Rob is well ahead into the future. That's why we trust the Australians, even though their continent does not exist. According to the Flat Earthers. Mr. Everett Themer, tell people where they can find the encounter.
They can find The Encounter at facebook.com/SOR The Encounter online for right now.
Wonderful. Soon to be on the spacedoutradio.com website. Tomorrow night on the program, we have Geraldine Orozco. She will be in for The Spiritual You starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. We want to say thank you to Tim Swartz for coming in to talk time travel tonight. Go to Amazon. Check out Tim's books. There's a plethora of them. Go pick yourself one up. I think you'll like his read. Dude's an Emmy Award-winning producer. He's got to be good. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thank you to everyone listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Everyone on Spreaker, you were fantastic with your questions tonight. Thank you for being awesome. Everybody on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio, we're saying goodnight to you on the Woo train. And the Veterans Club, the SOR Space Travelers on Facebook, led by Uncle Dale's mustache tonight. Thanks for sharing the show, telling your friends, and doing your part to make us bigger and better every single night. Because together, my friends, we own the night. I will talk to you in 21 hours from now. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Good night.